Hey, Coach Judy here, and today's video is titled Your First Money Makeover. And the reason I call it that is because F.I.R.S.T is the acronym for you to work through your own money story. So I did this myself a number of years ago because I was struggling and I didn't know what the issue was. And I've since used it to help friends and family, and now I'm hopefully helping you. So, tell you a little story, and then I'll kind of quickly try to tell you the highlights so that you can use it in a way with the cheat sheet that is here somewhere you can download. And you got to do some journaling, you got to do some writing, and you can't just keep it in your head. The reason you got to write is because writing helps your brain process things differently. So, you're just going to get a piece of paper. You're just going to start writing some of the things that I'm asking you to write about. So I'm going to tell you a little story. A few years ago, I was in a mastermind with a number of coaches and entrepreneurs, and we were sharing our ideas and what we were working on. And what happened for me was I was telling them about this new program that I was coming up. I was working with diabetics and pre-diabetics. And if you don't know me, I'm a nurse and I was a diabetes educator, health coach, life coach. So I was telling them about this and they were like, wow, that's amazing. That sounds great. You know, what are you going to charge for that? And I immediately felt contracted. I immediately started backtracking. I think I started at like $1,000, then it was $800, then $600. By the time I was done talking, I was down to like $250. And, they all kind of said to me, what are you running a hobby or a business? Because, how are you going to make any money charging those, prices one-on-one? And I was like, I know, I don't know what the problem is. I know I need to charge more. I know that I'm worth more. I know that I'm really helping people, but I don't know what the story is going on. And I said to myself, wow, I guess I need to get to work, right? And figure out what this is about. So at the time I had started writing this book called Now You've Got a Story to Tell. And by the way, it's going to be coming out this year. And in that story, in that book, I just help people look at the stories and the beliefs that they're telling themselves and transform them, right? Because they're kind of like the operating system for our life, right? And so your money story is the operating system for how abundant you are, how rich you are, or how broke you are, or whatever's going on with you, how you're managing your money, right? How you're allowing money into your life, all of that. So I said, okay, I'm gonna work on this, but I don't know where to start. I guess I'll just start at the beginning, right? What is my first money memory, right? So I start writing and stuff stops coming up, but then all of a sudden the very first money memory that came up for me, and you're gonna laugh, and it's okay, because I think it's ridiculous too, but it's really crazy, the things that are going in your head. So my first money memory was when I was 12, about 12. And I had just gotten braces on, right? Braces were expensive. I didn't know anybody that had braces that wasn't rich, right? That didn't have a lot of money. We even got them because my friend's dad was an orthodontist. So, but I had a big overbite. I had a lot of issues. I still have issues, but that was the issue at the time. So anyway, I had to ride my bike to school, and we were kind of lower middle class, so we were right at the bottom of the middle class kind of area in life. But I had to ride my bike to school, and I had to go on the other side of the tracks, right? And it was like, not the greatest of neighborhood. And I really always felt uncomfortable. But when I got my braces on, that really impacted me tremendously, as you'll see. So as I was writing my first money memory, I realized that this was the thought that came to me. Keep your mouth closed. Don't let anybody see that you have braces. They'll think that you have money. They will hold you for ransom. your parents won't be able to pay, and what's going to happen to you. Yeah. So that is a crazy story, right? That's a crazy belief. And unfortunately, like, I really believe that, because when I had this memory that I hadn't thought of in over 40 years, the terror came back, like, right, that fear came back with that memory. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't remembered that, none of that. So I had this horrible experience of remembering this. And I did a little more journaling, and I wrote about, some of my other, what was going on with money growing up with me and all that kinds of stuff. So that was my first money memory. That's the F in first, right? Find your first money memory. A lot of times it's when you're, 4 or 5 or 6, maybe a little bit older, but just keep digging around, just keep writing whatever's coming. Like, right, don't analyze it until you're done. Just download whatever comes into your mind. Ask your brain a good question, download, right? So then we move on to the I, right? So I said, okay, now I know my money memory, my first money memory, and some stuff around that. Then I went to what were the ideas about money in my house, right? How did my mom handle money, or talk about money, or use money, or spend money, or save money? And my stepdad, right? How did that work out, right? And so I journaled about that. I just wrote, and believe me, I'm not a journaler really. So I just wrote about it. I just asked myself the question, how did my mom feel about money, think about money, talk about money? So you don't have to be like some kind of expert journaler, just kind of start writing. So after doing all of that work, my mom grew up really poor and very conservative. She was an accounts payable kind of person, and so we always had budgets and ledgers and things like that. My stepdad grew up really wealthy in Cuba, and he had to leave everything as a teenager. And so he had he had his own money story, right? So a lot of times we lived beyond our means, and there was a lot of inconsistencies about money in our house. And so that was often uncomfortable. They would say we wouldn't have any money, and then we would go on a vacation, or they would complain about how expensive my swimming was, and then, we'd buy a new car. Like, I didn't really understand the money story. And my parents ended up having to file bankruptcy when I was in my, late teens for medical bills, medical problems. But there was just a lot of interesting dynamics about money growing up, right? So I processed all of that, and I said, wow, what is all of this telling me, right? But what I realized was that I had this belief, right? The R is now reveal the belief. But after looking at all that, I realized that my glasses were expensive, my braces were expensive, my clothes were expensive, that for some reason I felt like I was this expensive child creating this burden for my parents, right? That if I didn't need all of these things, then they would have more money, right? And their relationship would be better and all of this stuff. So my belief that got revealed to me was that I was a financial burden to my parents, right? I had no idea that I believed this. I had no idea for 40-something years that this was the operating system of my money belief, that this was one of the big, underliers there. And so that was fascinating to me, right? It was scary and fascinating, but it was there. So I thought, okay, well, if this is my belief and this is what I'm operating from, then how has that been showing up in my life, right? The S, showing up in my life. Where's the evidence? If this is really my belief, where's the evidence? And I'm going to tell you, you probably have more than one belief, because we all do, but this happened to be the one that came up, and this is what I, worked on. And so there were lots of instances. I even worked for this psychiatrist. I was young, married, had a little boy. I was in college part-time, and I was working for this psychiatrist, and he was just starting his business, and he was like, well, I'll pay you when the insurance money comes in, and this kind of stuff. And I worked for him for 6 months, and I never got paid. And I was paying a babysitter for my son, and I was going to school. And my husband thought it was ridiculous, but again, see, this was part of my operating system. I didn't want to create a burden for him, right? I didn't want to be a burden. that even though I was doing work and I should have gotten paid for it, right? He was already burdened. I didn't want to create more of a burden, right? So I also was the head coach of a swim team, and we were a nonprofit, and we were in a kind of a lower socioeconomic, area, and we were swimming at a rec center, and so we didn't want to raise our fees too much. We wanted to give all these kids opportunity to swim, and so I worked for probably half of what I should have gotten paid. And I was an independent contractor, which meant that then I was paying my own gas to go to swim meets and different things. So again, I didn't want to be a burden to the swim team, right? Or to the parents. Didn't want to create a burden for them. Evidence, right? And so I also volunteered as a parish nurse for about 10 years at a church, which was awesome. Like, I believe in volunteerism, and I think it's great for your soul and your well-being and for the world. But I was doing it about 30 hours a week. Like, it was a job. Like, I was going to staff meetings, and I already had a job, right? And I had a family. So I was doing all of this, and they kept saying, well, we really need to pay you because you're like a staff member and you're doing all of this work. But we really don't have the budget. We need an assistant rector and different things, we're in transition. And of course, because my operating system, I don't want to be a financial burden to anybody. No worries, right? So, again, it's also feeding into my unworthiness, right? I had this whole unworthiness, belief as well, that I wasn't good enough. So, which a lot of us have, it's okay. But, that was feeding in there as well, right? So now I see how it's showing up in my life, right? So now I said, I saw how it showed up in my life. So now how is it showing up now, right? Now that I'm running this business, how is this showing up? And it was very clear to me, right? That I did not want to create a financial burden for any of my clients, right? If they were going to pay me, I would have more money, they would have less money, and somehow I would be creating this burden for them. So I said, wow, well, that's fascinating. I need to look at that. So now we're at the T, right? The T is it true? Transform it and turn it around, right? So I'm going a little fast here. There's a lot more, to the story, but I'm just trying to, get through it so you don't spend all day on this video. So the T for transform, or is it true? So it doesn't even matter if it was true, if my parents believed that, if I believed that. Up until now, I believed that, right? If I would have asked my parents, they would have said, no, we never thought that. But their actions and what I was believing because of my own, my own beliefs and my own stories was that I was this financial burden, right? So, but I can let that go, right? I don't need to worry. Up until now, that was my belief, right? So, is it true now? Am I creating a financial burden for my clients? If I ask them to pay me a certain amount of money for the service that I'm giving them, are they going to lose their house? Are they going to lose their car? Are they going to go into debt? That they're going to be financially burdened? Well, I don't want that. Certainly I don't want that for anybody. But I doubt that, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not creating that for anybody. So the truth is that I said, what is the truth? The truth is I am relieving them of their burden, right? Of their obesity, if they need to lose weight and get healthy, of their issues with their prediabetes or diabetes, right? Of their, maybe their cholesterol and their high blood pressure and all of these other things, right? Their negative thought loops and their shame and unworthiness stories, right? All of these things, right? Their money story, right? I'm relieving them of that. And you would pay any amount of money to not be unhappy, unhealthy, and unworthy, right? Nobody, we pay for things that we value. And if you say, I don't want to live like that anymore, so I'm relieving them of that burden. I wasn't creating a burden. Right? So once I stood in that truth, then I was like, oh, well, this feels so much better, right? Than the story that I was telling myself that I was believing. So now you have the F.I.R.S.T, right? The first money memory. You have the ideas about money growing up. You have the how would it show up in my life, and how is it showing up now? What is the evidence of this? And then the T for the reveal. Sorry, reveal the belief. Then how is it showing up? And then the T for is it true? Transform it and turn it around, right? So now I got two more pieces for you. The first piece is you've got to stay in the new mantra, right? The new belief, right? So I've had this belief for 40 something years that I was a financial burden to my parents and other people. So the new belief is, no, that's not true. I'm relieving them of their burden, right? I'm relieving them of their burden. And what I need you to do is I need you to hook it to something that you absolutely believe, right? Because your subconscious will process it a lot faster, and you'll be able to move, and you'll be able to start believing that a lot faster. So one of the things that I absolutely believe is that smoking causes cancer. That's my belief. It might not be yours. Smoking causes cancer. So when I, offer somebody, or when I raise my prices, or when I do whatever, right? Whenever if I have a little contracted feeling about money, how I had to start was, when that feeling would come, I say, no, I'm not believing that anymore. I'm believing this, that I'm not creating a burden. I'm relieving them of their burden, and smoking causes cancer. And a lot of times I would just say it to myself in the shower, in the car. I would just say, I'm not creating a burden for anyone, and smoking causes cancer. Like, I would just keep saying that because I tell myself a new belief system, right? But because I had worked through the story, right? It wasn't just some affirmation that somebody gave me, right? I didn't just write down some affirmation somewhere on my mirror. Because I worked on the story, and I actually understood my story, and I had a new belief about my story, the truth about my story, right? And this operating system that was running my life, that then the mantra and the affirmation made sense, right? Then I was like, oh yeah, okay, no, I really believe it now, right? So that's the first thing. The other final piece of this is that you need to take action on your new belief, because you've been in that belief for a long time, right? You've been in that story for a long time, and you have lots of evidence for that, but you have very little evidence for the new belief. So that means if you're a coach, you might have to raise your prices, or that means that you need to just practice saying it to people, like how much you're going to charge, right? Or whatever, something along those lines. If you're an entrepreneur or business person, you might need to invest in your business, right? You might be holding back. Your money story might be something about there's never going to be enough money, or I have to save my money, or I have to have money in the bank, like I can't, invest the money. It's too risky, or whatever your money story is, right? So, and by the way, I invested with Elizabeth, and she helped me with my website and all of that. So, those two pieces are really important, right? And then finally, work on your wealth consciousness, right? Because we all have money stories. We all have these beliefs. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money isn't spiritual. Money is the root of all evil. We have a lot of these just money beliefs, and I've had some other ones creep in as well. But this was a big piece for me, as you can see, and this is why I had to kind of tell this story, so you can see how it was playing out in my life, right? So I changed my money story. I realized that, and then I had some unworthiness stuff that I had to work on as well to receive the money, right? Number one, I could change that, but I didn't feel worthy to receive it, right? To receive the money. So work on your wealth consciousness, Google, YouTube, books, get out there, find some help, right? I'm happy to help you. Here's like I said, use the cheat sheet, figure out what you can figure out if you get stuck, because sometimes we can't see because we're in the frame, right? We can't see the picture. Give me a call, or give me an email, coach@judyprokopiak.com. Let me see if I can help you figure it out. That's my zone of genius. I really help people figure out what the story is that they're telling themselves, and we turn it around and transform it and change it. so that you can take action, so that you can live from a new operating system, right? So that you can live from a new belief. Because otherwise you're just going to constantly stay stuck, right? So I don't want that for you. I want you to live the life that you've been dreaming about. I want you to not struggle like I did. And so hopefully this was helpful, and I wish you well in your journey. And yeah, if you've got some stories and beliefs that you know that you don't even know you're telling yourself. See, I didn't know that story I was telling myself. So, but if you're struggling to lose the weight, if you're struggling to, you know, run your business, if you're struggling to find love in your life, if you're, whatever you're struggling with, it's probably because you have some kind of story that is running the show, right? So let's step out of that story and into your life. So thanks for joining me. I hope it was helpful. I hope you got some value from this, and I will be seeing you around. All right, thank you. Bye.